What's up, disc golf weirdos? Discraft, long the #1 manufacturer of discs for freestyle and ultimate, remained the runner-up in disc golf for 35 years, despite a reputation for quality and consistency, sponsoring world champions, and manufacturing a full lineup of well-regarded discs. Recently, through renewed media presence and the signing of unprecedented contracts with the highest profile professionals, Discraft has surged ahead of other disc golf manufacturers. Here at Keep Disc Golf Weird, we're going to take a look at Discraft's history, plastics, and discs. Discraft was founded by husband and wife team Jim Kinner and Gail McCall. Jim and Gail were bona fide Frisbee pioneers who were heavily involved in competitive Frisbee as early as 1973. Back then, disc golf was one of the sub-activities that fell under the Frisbee umbrella. As you can see if you check out the archival videos of 1970s Frisbee championships we've linked in the description below. Highly recommended. Sometime around 1978, Kinner and McCall, dissatisfied by currently available discs, began to form Discraft in London, Ontario. A year later, Discraft Incorporated was formed across the border in the Detroit area, initially in Westland, Michigan, and later to Wixom, Michigan, Discraft's current home. We'd like to take just a moment to reflect on Gail and Jim because without their passion, entrepreneurship, and decades of tireless work, disc golf wouldn't be what it is today. Along with co-founding Discraft, Gail McCall was PDGA number 240, the six-time women's Canadian disc golf champion, the 1976 World Freestyle Champion, the World Disc Golf Champion in 1978, and was inducted into both the Freestyle Hall of Fame and the Disc Golf Hall of Fame. Sadly, Gail passed away in 2017. Jim Kinner is PDGA number 292, and along with co-founding Discraft, co-inventing freestyle, designing classic discs, he was also a disc golf course designer and a promoter. Jim was inducted into the Disc Golf Hall of Fame in 1997. Suffice to say, disc golfers today owe Gail and Jim a huge debt of gratitude. Discraft's first disc popular for disc golf was the Sky Streak, which was an improved, heavy, lid-type disc. Discraft's first beveled edge golf disc was the Phantom, introduced in 1983. Then, for decades, Discraft continued to introduce great new molds, produce quality discs, sponsor world champion caliber players, and pioneer disc golf digital media, but remain behind Innova in overall stature. This chart shows the number of new Discraft molds PDGA approved per year. The bottom line is Discraft was consistently producing new discs year in and year out. The pros that Discraft sponsored over the years are a veritable who's who of professional disc golf. These included doubles and distance champion Scott Stokely, world champions Juliana Korver, Ron Russell, Eric McCabe, and Cam Todd, three-time world champion Nate Doss, Michael M.J. Johansson, Greg Barsby, and many others. However, the 2013 season was a big setback for Discraft, who was hit particularly hard by the Players' Revolution, the founding of Prodigy Disc, where Discraft lost an FPO dream team of world champs Paige Pierce, Katrina Allen, and Sarah Hokum. On the men's side, Discraft lost Kale Leviska and Big Germ to Prodigy. This event seemed to really impact Discraft's corporate morale, and we didn't see much big news coming out of Wixom for several years. But something seemed to change around 2017. We have no direct knowledge, but can imagine a changing of the guard with Jim Kinner semi-retiring and passing leadership of the company to his nephew, Mike Wagner, and the untimely passing of longtime marketing director Brian Sullivan. Whatever the reasons, a change can be seen in both Discraft's strategy for pro sponsorships and its media presence. On the pro sponsorship side, by 2017, Nate Doss remained Discraft's highest profile player, but was starting to focus on other ventures. For the 2018 season, Discraft signed a historic $1 million four-year deal with Paul Macbeth, which also included the development of a Paul Macbeth brand. That deal was further extended to 10 years and $10 million. After signing Macbeth, Discraft then went on a tear of signing pros and demonstrated their commitment to sponsor the best players in the world by re-signing five-time world champion Paige Pierce. We also feel that Discraft got lucky when former Ultimate star, trick shot maestro, and self-promotion genius Brody Smith discovered disc golf. Brody, who already had a relationship with Discraft through Ultimate, brought his 2.2 million YouTube subscribers to disc golf and Discraft. He seems to have a talent for selling plastic only surpassed by Macbeth himself, and we think he is a tremendous asset for Discraft. On the media side, Discraft was an early pioneer of free instructional videos on YouTube, but after the 2013 Prodigy exodus, Discraft completely stopped posting new videos, as you can see from this screenshot. Then, in 2018, which is the same time Discraft's approach to pro sponsorships changed, they suddenly reemerged on YouTube with well-produced go-to-discs videos, which is their version of an in-the-bag video, disc reviews, and playing tips. Another Discraft media initiative we'd like to briefly highlight is the Discraft Underground. Underground members are sponsored brand ambassadors for Discraft who are not elite players, but are selected for their enthusiasm and media presence. Discraft uses the Underground Interviews YouTube channel as a fan-centric media outlet. There are other Discraft Underground members on YouTube, and we especially enjoy the slickly produced reviews by Chris Cheating Lefty Kearney. We've included links in the description below. Discraft has long sponsored high-profile pro events like the Memorial, the Leadstone Open, and the Great Lakes Open, but Discraft also pioneered grassroots promotion of disc golf. In 2003, they started the Ace Race. Ace races are beginner-friendly, fun events with the objective of throwing aces, usually on a course with shortened holes. Discraft has generally introduced a new disc for each Ace race, and some of those discs have gone on to be popular, while others have gone out of production. Here's a list of Ace Race discs with the year they were introduced. The Ace Race was unfortunately canceled for 2020 due to COVID concerns, but should be back for 2021. Here's Discraft's website graphic from early 2021, listing 6 different major types of plastic with a few different Z plastic variants. We are covering the most prevalent plastic types, but Discraft has recently introduced some new plastic types and limited runs, so we can't cover plastics exhaustively. Here's our kind of mind map of Discraft plastics we will use for this quick tour. We do think it's awesome that Discraft is experimenting with new plastic blends when they already have the most extensive lineup of plastic in the industry. We'll start off with Discraft's traditional base plastic, the cheap and cheerful Pro D. Pro D is super grippy, tends to wear quickly, has a tendency to warp, and is not very durable. In fact, we'd go so far as to say Pro D might be the least durable plastic we have thrown from any major manufacturer. It might sound like we don't like Pro D plastic, but actually we love the stuff when it's used for putters. Here's a couple of examples of why we don't recommend Pro D for drivers. This old Pro D Cyclone looks like it's been through a war, and this Pro D Heat had a short, exciting life. One solid hit into an obstacle left the top starting to separate from the rim. Pro D is generally pretty understable when fresh and beats in quickly to be less and less stable. Pro D's issues aren't a problem for putters used for putting, so we would recommend moving to more premium plastics for throwing putters, mids, and drivers, but its awesome feel and great price make it one of our favorites for putting putters. Recently, Discraft announced Putterline Hard plastic is replacing Pro D. We got our order in for this Putterline Hard Roach. It's too early to tell how Putterline is going to hold up, but we can tell you Putterline Hard feels exactly like Pro D. Even if Putterline does turn out to be very similar to Pro D's durability, positioning it as a putter-only plastic is a smart move. Next up is Jawbreaker plastic. This is a step up from Pro D with a really interesting splattery look and an amazing rubbery grip. Discraft rates the durability of Jawbreaker better than Pro D, but frankly it's hard to tell because Jawbreaker is offered primarily in putter speed discs. We'll take Discraft's word for it, but you can see our Jawbreaker putters have chewed up relatively quickly, and we've found them to warp pretty easily too. A variant of Jawbreaker is the stiff, grippy Luna Blend plastic that the Macbeth Luna is molded in. Hopefully this will be offered in more molds because it's really great feeling and seems to be holding up better than Jawbreaker or Pro D. Our next step up is X Plastic, which is Discraft's middle-of-the-road opaque plastic. X Plastic is quite stiff and flies on the more understable side out of the box, which can be very useful for beginners and players with slower arm speeds. We find X plastic is a big step up in durability from Pro D, although not anywhere close to Z, ESP, or TI. Here's some video of an X Comet that has seen better days. It was thrown for years, became terribly warped, and finally hit one tree too many. As you can see on this white nuke, at some point Discraft was calling X plastic Elite X, but as far as we can tell, X and Elite X are the same things. We like X plastic and think it's underrated and a good value, especially for lower arm speed players. Just don't expect it to hold up like the more premium plastics. Discraft offers a variant of X plastic called X-Line Soft, which is a very soft, super grippy plastic that seems to wear in quickly. We really enjoyed this X-Soft zone at first, but it became a weird feeling puddle top within a few months of being put in the bag. Evidently, the new Putterline Soft is replacing X-Line Soft, and it's reported to feel very similar, although we have not tried it yet. Now on to ESP, which is Discraft's opaque premium plastic. Over several discs, we found some variation in grip with ESP. For instance, we always found this ESP zone to have a slick, glossy feel, but any of the more recent ESP discs we've thrown have definitely been grippier. ESP generally has a reputation of having middle-of-the-road stability, and we've been very happy with the flight characteristics of discs molded in ESP. Generally, ESP fits into Discraft's lineup in the same place and is similar to Innova Star plastic. We have absolutely no complaints with ESP's durability and are very satisfied with how they hold their shape, although it's a tick less bulletproof than the next two plastics featured. Z plastic has historically been considered the top of Discraft's lineup, occupying roughly the same spot for Discraft as Champion plastic for Innova. The Z plastic lineup features several subtypes, including Z Flex, Z Light, Z Glow, Big Z, Crystal Z. Generally, Z plastic is Discraft's translucent premium plastic that has great durability, and we've generally been very happy with the grip, flight characteristics, and resistance to warping. Flight characteristics tend to be much more consistent as the disc wears in versus the cheaper plastics. First subvariant up is Big Z plastic. It's said to be a mix of ESP and Z plastic, which seems plausible to us. They have similar grip and flight characteristics as Z, with an opaque appearance more like ESP. We have found the durability of Big Z to be superb. Grip varies, with this Big Z Mantis, for instance, being a little bit slick, but this brand new Big Z Nuke feels incredible and super grippy. One of the coolest things about buying Big Z discs are the large, iconic stamps that make the discs really distinctive. Z Flex. If you like a flexy disc that holds up amazingly, then look no further than Z Flex. We hear there are stability differences in some molds, but we detect zero difference in flight between a Z and Z Flex Buzz SS, Tour Series Z, which we've also heard called Swirly Z. While we don't see this listed on Discraft's site as a separate variant, it definitely is. Tour Series Z is a very cool, swirly looking Z plastic. In our experience, Tour Series Z discs tend to be more stable than other plastics and have a look that is hard to beat. Check out our very pretty Tour Series Stalker and Comet. Z Glow. We don't have huge experience with Z Glow, but we have thrown this Z Glow Buzz for years. This particular disc is a bit slick feeling, but has done a great job of holding its shape and resisting damage. Z Light. This is essentially Z plastic infused with air to make lighter discs. It occupies the same place in Discraft's lineup as Innova Blizzard plastic. Crystal Flex, Crystal Sparkle, Crystal Z. These are super transparent, premium plastics that have a reputation for being more stable. Around these parts, the really clear ones would probably get lost on the first throw, but they sure look incredible. And finally, at the top of Discraft's lineup, we have titanium or TI plastic, which is billed as super premium, opaque, and metallic looking plastic. Discraft advertises TI as super durable, and we have found TI discs to hold their shape, resist cracks and abrasions as well as anything out there. We have found the grip characteristics to be middle of the road, and flight characteristics seem to be in the same ballpark as ESP and Z. We've seen at least some examples where TI is actually less stable than Z, but aren't sure we would extend this generalization to all discs. We have not noticed much of any change in stability as TI discs wear in. One interesting characteristic is how much the sun fades TI plastic. You can see this heat started out a cool lavender color, and we accidentally left it out in the sun for a few weeks and ended up with this much less cool color. This is not a problem for most players who actually store their discs properly. In some ways, TI's popularity may have been hurt by how great some of the other Discraft plastics are, but if you like the feel and appearance, we'd say you can't go wrong with TI. Plastic preferences are highly individualistic, and we aren't sure there's any substitute for laying your hands on discs and giving them a throw. But hopefully, the previous overview gives players a starting point for experimentation. Discraft produces an extensive lineup of discs and a variety of speeds and stabilities. We are drawn to weird discs, and Discraft has not let us down, with a thumb track putter called the Banger GT, an old school large diameter mid-range with a cult following called the Comet, and a ridiculously overstable driver called the Flick. By our count, they currently produce 13 putt and approach molds, 10 mid-ranges, 18 drivers, and 22 distance drivers. So any player should be able to find something that suits them in Discraft's lineup. A couple general points about Discraft discs. Discraft produces variant stability molds it calls OS for overstable and SS for super straight, which are more understable variants of the base mold. For example, the popular Nuke is offered in a regular Nuke, the Nuke SS, which is more understable, and the Nuke OS, which is more overstable. Another somewhat unique attribute of Discraft discs is the raised lettering molded into the inside of the rim. Some players don't care for this, but we really like it. We feel like the raised letters allow our fingertips some extra traction, imparting extra spin on the disc, although this is probably our imagination. If it turns out you don't like the lettering, you can always position your fingers on a section of the rim that is molded smooth. One more thing that may just be our pet peeve, but we really dislike the flashing on disc that is formed where the mold parts come together. This is extremely prevalent in the industry. It's also really hard to show on video. While it just looks like a line in the plastic here, it's actually raised, sharp, and feels very uncomfortable in the hand. It can be removed or worn away through use, but in our experience, Discraft discs seem to have less flashing when new, which is a nice plus. The following is an overview of 6 discs we feel would make a great minimalist bag for a player with moderate arm speed. The bag consists of a putter, an overstable approach putter, a neutral mid-range, a neutral fairway driver, an overstable fairway driver, and a max distance driver. Discraft produces several classic putters like the Magnet and the Challenger, but we've decided to profile the newer Roach. The Roach was the Ace Race disc for 2015 and has flight numbers of Speed 2, Glide 4, Turn 0, and Fade of 1. The Roach is a beadless putter with a great feel in the hand. We do find the Roach to be quite similar to the Dynamic Warden, which is beadless, has the same rim depth, and almost identical flight numbers. In another comparison, the Paul Macbeth Luna clearly shares some DNA with the Roach, although the Luna is tweaked to be a bit faster and fades harder at the end of its flight. Here we can see a fairly typical 245-foot flight with our Pro D Roach, which is very straight, both in the flight chart and out in the Keep Disc Golf Weird test course, which is actually a goat pasture. Several high-profile Discraft-sponsored pros use the Roach, including Ezra Aderhold and Brody Smith. Bottom line, we really enjoy the Roach. It is highly recommended if you like a beadless putter. The next slot in our bag is an overstable approach putter. Discraft excels here with the Zone. While not strictly a necessary part of the bag, many players, including us, find the wind-fighting reliability, forehand-friendly torque resistance, and the way these discs dump out of the air staying close to the basket to be an essential part of their bag. From what we can gather, the Zone is the most popular overstable approach disc, where its primary competition is probably the West Side Harp. We started out with Harps, but found their depth caused them to hang on our fingers occasionally. The Zone is a bit shallower, and for us, comes out of the hand a bit more cleanly. The PDGA lists the Harp at 1.4 centimeters deep and the Zone at 1.3 centimeters deep, so it's not totally our imagination. The Zone was PDGA approved in 2008 and features flight numbers of Speed 4, Glide 3, Turn 0, and Fade of 3. The Zone seems to make it into the bag of just about every Discraft-sponsored pro. Of special note is Macbeth, who didn't really have an overstable approach game prior to switching to Discraft. He threw the ultra-straight flying Nova quite a bit. But now, when you see that black Zone in his hand, something ludicrously great is about to happen. Also, Brody Smith seems to have fallen in love with his Get Freaky zones and is selling them as fast as Discraft can make them. Here we can see a right-hand backhand zone flight at our power levels might cover 225 feet with considerable fade. The beat-up X-off zone fades moderately, and then a Z zone is quite a bit more overstable. Bottom line, the zone is a classic disc that we find to be an essential part of our bag. We give the zone the Keep Disc Golf Weird seal of approval. No overview of Discraft disc would be complete without highlighting the Buzz. The Buzz is a widely loved mid-range that Discraft claims is the world's most popular golf disc. The Buzz was PDGA approved in 2003 and has flight numbers of speed 5, glide 4, turn of -1, and fade of 1. This flight chart shows a Buzz going about 265 feet at our power levels. The Buzz's historic arch enemy is the end of a rock. The Buzz and the rock feel like opposite ends of the mid-range game, with the Buzz being beadless, usually flat-topped, faster, and usually having less fade. Strictly by the flight numbers, Innova's most similar disc actually is the Skeeter at 5.5 -1.1, which we've never seen anyone bag, so we have no comment on the Skeeter. Given the Buzz's popularity they seem to accumulate for disc golfers, we have several around in various plastics and states of wear. You could easily bag multiple Buzzes in different plastics and different states of wear to get a full range of stable to understable shots. You can see here that a beat-up Pro D Buzz will turn extremely, almost hilariously right, where a Z Buzz has a much more neutral flight. Quite a few pros bag Buzzes, including Macbeth, Pierce, Aderhold, and many others. Drew Gibson, one of the highest profile open bag pros, likes to absolutely smash Buzzes off the tee pad. So it doesn't matter if it's an experienced pro or a beginner's first and only disc, the Buzz works for a wide range of players and has certainly stood the test of time. In the neutral fairway driver slot, beginners and low arm speed players should probably first look at a Heat, which is a fantastic understable driver, but someone with a bit more arm speed could jump up to the Undertaker, which we have found to be a versatile disc for both backhand and forehand drives. With flight numbers of speed 9, glide 5, -1 turn, and fade of 2, the Undertaker hits a sweet spot as an all-around driver. The two Undertakers we have are pretty different, with one being low profile and a bit more understable, and one being domier, glidier, and more stable. Comparing the Undertaker to a similar Innova disc, we notice the flight numbers are very close to the Innova Viking at 9.4 -1.2. Innova's co-founder Dave Dunapace has stated he thinks the Viking is an exceptional and underrated disc. The one champion Viking we have around here is quite a bit more stable than the Undertaker and is even domier than the Domi Undertaker. There's a bunch of pros who throw Undertakers, including Macbeth, Michael Johansson, Tim Barnum, Vanessa Van Dyken, and several others. We suspect players with higher arm speeds may find the Undertaker to be too understable, but at our power levels, we find it to be an almost perfect all-around fairway driver. The next slot in our theoretical bag is an overstable fairway driver. While beginners may want to skip this slot at first, we think it's still a useful disc for players of all arm speeds. We use the Raptor as a longer zone. If we can't get enough distance with the zone, then the Raptor comes out. This particular Z Raptor has been thrown extensively, has held up incredibly well, and is a mainstay in our bag. It gets thrown every time we play. It also gets used for get-out-of-trouble shots like forehand rollers and thumbers. The Raptor has flight numbers of speed 9, glide 4, turn 0, and fade of 3. We couldn't find a flight chart of the Raptor, so we are using the flight chart from a Discmania FD3, which we think flies similarly. Here's a right-hand backhand hyzer that actually connects with the cage. The most obvious comparison to the Raptor is the Innova Firebird. The Firebird has slightly more overstable flight numbers of 9.304, and we do find a stock Firebird to be considerably more overstable than our Raptor. Comparing them side by side, it's difficult to notice any difference at all, although the Raptor's nose is slightly more beveled. The Raptor is the Tour Series disc for Paul Ulibarri and is also thrown by Ezra Aderhold, Adam Hammes, Andrew Presnell, and is popular among many other Discraft sponsored pros. Mark us down as huge Raptor fans. We find it to be perhaps the most versatile and most thrown disc in our bag. While our theoretical beginner or lower arm speed player would be better off with a Thrasher or a Hades, we'd still like to profile the Nuke, just because it's such a big part of Discraft's history, and through the wonders of different plastics, there are Nuke options that will work for lower arm speed players. The Nuke was PDGA approved in 2009 and is a very wide-rimmed, high-speed distance driver. Given the Nuke's PDGA measured rim width of 2.5 centimeters, the Nuke may not be comfortable in everybody's hands. Just for comparison, an Innova Destroyer has a rim thickness of 2.2 centimeters. The Nuke's flight numbers are speed 13, glide 5, turn -1, and fade of 3, which are identical to the Innova Boss. Generally, we don't have 13 speed arms and try to stick with slower discs, but we got this ancient pop-top white Elite X Nuke in a mystery bag of used discs. Lo and behold, it became the longest driver in our bag. Here you can see the comparison in dominess between the X Plastic Nuke and a Big Z Nuke. This flight chart shows the theoretical flight of a Nuke at our power levels. Frankly, there's so much difference between the most understable Nuke to our most overstable Nuke that they might as well be different discs. When it comes to Nukes, your mileage will vary. Here we are throwing 4 different examples. The first is the old X Plastic Nuke that is understable but will give us max distance backhand drives. Here's another X Nuke that is newer and slightly less understable but similar to the white one and will get very good distance. The yellow Nuke is a Big Z, which is a bit more stable yet. The red Z-Flex Nuke is quite a bit more overstable at our arm speed and not something we currently bag. The Nuke is popular with Discraft sponsored pros and is thrown by Paige Pierce, Paul Ulibarri, Ezra Aderhold, and many others. We'd encourage beginners to start with slower discs, but when a player is starting to think about developing maximum distance, the Nuke should be on the short list of discs to try, and don't forget to experiment with different plastics if you aren't getting the flight you expect. Visit any disc golf store and you will notice one thing. Discraft is hot. At the time we produce this video, online retailer Infinite Discs has only a single Discraft mid-range mold in stock, and the rest of the lineup isn't in any better shape. This is not an accident or luck, but the culmination of a deliberate course change that emphasized high-profile pro sponsorships and on-point marketing backed up with an existing product line that had something for everyone. The result has taken Discraft from Innova's perpetual understudy to unquestionably the most energetic company in disc golf. From its origins in 1970s Frisbee counterculture to its current runaway success, Discraft's story is an important part of disc golf's history, lore, and future. While we hope for Discraft's continued success, we also hope that Discraft doesn't forget its old school roots, the whimsical disc names, and the wacky disc art, because it's important to keep disc golf weird.